vamos a decir bienvenidas. We've all got a female clientele here today, all female. Bienvenida, y bienvenido, Roger. Hey, Roger, because I know he's going to be watching later. Okay. Muy bien. Vamos a hacer muchas cosas. Bienvenidas a todas. Y vamos a practicar con más letras. We're going to practice with some more letters. I did get some feedback to you guys on your little pronunciation thing, which was pretty good. The one thing I want you to be conscious of, and this is a hard thing to be conscious of, is every time we practice a new letter, you are folding in all the old letters. You know, I don't know if you noticed this, but it's like, you know, it's kind of tough because really now you are starting to juggle all those sounds together. And, you know, the reviewing of all the vowels is something especially that you're going to see over and over and over again. So do be very, very conscious of the vowel thing. You know, all the A's are sounds, all the O's are o sounds, right? All the letter E are e sounds. Letter I is always E, right? And then our U. We're going to see a couple of instances where U is not U today, but most of the time it's U. So keeping all those vowels in the back of your mind while you fold in the new letters is a challenge. And, you know, you have no idea how desperately your English wired brain, or maybe you do because you feel it, but your English wired brain, if you were brought up speaking English first, is it just hangs on to those sounds for dear life. And as much as you want to make it come out one way, it may come out sounding like English. So always be aware of those vowels, because English vowels, I think we've got 19 sounds for all of our vowels combined. And that mix is just hardwired. So if you feel like, gee, it's difficult, please know that is actually a neurological, you know, brain science oriented thing. So something we all have to work on. We're going to work some of our more challenging letters today. We're going to talk about I. If you don't have your little props, if you have something ready, make sure you've got them ready. I want to tell you that ahead of time so you can run out and grab them if you need a couple of seconds. That's pretty normal. We're going to use I, right? One of your little assignments was find something in your kitchen, or, you know, something that we can use I. There is this stuff en mi cocina, en la nevera, in the refrigerator, you know, wherever it might be. So I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes just to make sure they've got those little items lined up, and just one or two things, you know, if you're going really hog wild, you can do 3. I'll start off with my examples first when we are done with our letters. So we're going to do I with our little practice things from the kitchen or fridge together after the letters. And then we're going to talk about, we're going to start to get into some more grammar-oriented things, just so that you know how stuff rolls. We're going to talk about how we make nouns, the names for things, plural, more than one, and it's a lot like English, so that lesson is going to be super easy. And we're going to start to talk about this concept of masculine and feminine with nouns, which is not easy, especially not for the English speaker. That is a little bit tough, and that will take you a while to practice and get over the hub with it, but you know, okay. And we're going to start to work some more with I. We'll take any questions you might have had from reading through the first 2 chapters there. So, you know, pretty soon what's going to happen is some of these very abstract concepts, like, you know, how do we make nouns plural, like how can we tell if nouns are masculine or feminine? Why do I use S? Why do I use I? Why do I use all these? They start to kind of merge. It's really difficult to divorce those topics and take them all nice and separately in little units, because it all becomes like a great big blender where they start to merge together. So, You know, unless you got puppies or anything, make sure that you're off of mute, so that you can interrupt me if you have a question. Always feel free to interrupt with a question or type it in the chat box, whichever you prefer. Let's start with our pronunciación. We're going to start with our pronunciation. Most of you did really, really nice jobs on taking a look at and in practicing these H's. You know, the hard ones here were words like Alhambra, anything that is 3 or 4 syllables, that is going to be tough. So the tough ones in this group were Alhambra, almohada. Well, if you thought those were stinkers, they are, because the H is hiding, waiting to get you right in the middle of the word. So it pops up where your brain wants to make that H sound really, really badly. You know, when the H starts off the word, you can kind of tell yourself mentally, ooh, ignore it, right? So hoy and I and hombre, that will happen. Okay, but then you get down to almohada and Alhambra and alcohol. You know, those are legitimately tough. But a lot of you did really, really great on your H sounds with that jota, that letter J. So we're going to start off here. Actually, I'm going to start off and ask if you had any questions on anything there first before we tackle some of these newer letters. No? Okay. You should have your list of letters handy. We're going to look at the L, or sometimes they call it J. This letter is actually, there is a group of gray-haired men, literally gray-haired men. Are there any women in the group? I don't know. But there's a group of men who actually decide about rules in Spanish. They're called the Real Academia Española, Real Academia Española. And they're actually a group of people from all the different countries that speak Spanish. And they get together, kind of like the people get together to decide about what words get into an Oxford dictionary. They're kind of like that, except they really look at like everything from pronunciation to grammar rules, the whole shebang. And they have decided now that this letter, la letra L, when I learned this, it was called L, double L. It used to be a single letter, considered a single letter in the alphabet. And when you opened a dictionary, there was a separate entry for L. About, I want to say 20 years ago, they decided they're not going to call that a separate letter anymore, but it may as well be because it makes a sound, okay? And this L sound, this gets the gradation, right? Depending on what region you're in that speaks Spanish, there is a range of pronunciations for the L that are acceptable, okay? And there's one that's acceptable, but only regionally in like 2 countries. So we'll talk about that because a lot of people get confused with this. And we start with, you know, me llamo, you've already got that letter, me llamo, right? Me llamo already has that. Se llama, to talk about somebody's name, is already has that. And we want to say a la, because wow, double L in English is just L, call, right? Call, will, toll, tally, rally. It's just la, but not in Spanish. It's a yeah. So the range that's acceptable is anything from starting as just a Y, yeah sound, to a little bit of a je with the Y, okay? So not a pronounced je. There is a pronounced je, but only in Argentina and Uruguay. So people who speak with the je for that sound, the L, everybody automatically knows, oh, they're from Uruguay or they're from Argentina. Because they're, so I recommend you do not pronounce this L as a je, even though some people say it that way, because the number of countries that say it that way is super limited. And they automatically peg people, oh, they're from Rio de la Plata, they are from that region of South America. So you want to keep it with anything from the ya to the je with a ya example, okay? So let's go through these words together, okay? We've got, I'm gonna model all of them. So take a look at the LY sounds. Llama, and you're gonna hear me. I do the little bit of the je before the Y, but really, really faint. Llama. Repitan, sí, llama. Llama, sí, llave.
Llave.
Llave. And if you're more comfortable keeping that just as a straight y sound, that's perfectly okay. The next one is calle.
Calle.
Calle. Next, oh, and this one we see on some restaurants here in Arizona, right? Pollo. Pollo, chicken, right? It's not polo, it's because there is polo with a single L, and that's the sport, but pollo. Okay. Next is a word for chair, silla.
Silla.
Bien. And next is the color for yellow. And here's a multi-syllable word. So we're going to take this slowly. Amarillo. Amarillo. We have a city in Texas named, and the people pronounce it Amarillo, Texas. Something there looked yellow when people came. Amarillo. I don't know what it was, but amarillo. Probably dried out grass before they got their wildfires. Yeah. Amarillo. Next is the word for clothing size, like small, medium, large. Okay. Talla. Next is the word to cry, llorar. Around Halloween, be aware, sometimes you start people talking about La Llorona. La Llorona is the crying woman. They've got a boogeyman kind of story to scare little kids about a crying woman. That's a story for another day, but people like to tell that at Halloween because it kind of ties into Dia de los Muertos, which is close to our Halloween time. Okay, llorar, to cry. And the next one is the word which means there, when people mean something is like not really close, but you know, that away. Allí. Okay. I want to put you into little groups to practice just the L, the y sound, because you got to fight not to do an L. Your brain has to fight to not do an L. They call this letter the L, people who still call it a separate letter, even though they're not supposed to L. And okay, I'm going to actually, I'm going to assign people to groups, and I'm going to keep one person with me because we've got uneven numbers. So, you know, you practice one word, your partner takes the next, the third word comes back to you. You get the idea. Bien. Okay. And, oh, where's it letting me doing another room? Oh, add a room. Duh. Usually I just have the computer do this for me. Okay, so I'm going to have 4 of you going off into one room. Shelley, I'm going to have you staying with me so that we've got even pairs, okay? And everybody else go off. Do remember to hit your join button. Just go through these letters real quickly. We'll come back and see if you had any issues. And off you go, except for Shelley. Pobre Shelley, poor Shelley, you're stuck with me. Okay, Shelley, I'm going to start with the first one. Okay. And then you take the next. Okay, we're just going to look at the Edia here. So, llama. You try the next one.
Llave.
Llave. Okay. And yeah, do an E on the end of it. Llave.
Llave.
Llave. There you go. The word for a key. Calle.
Pollo.
Again. Silla.
Amarillo.
Amarillo. And try with nice so try that one again, but amarillo.
Amarillo.
You got stuck with the long one. Okay. Talla.
Orar.
Llorar. And allí. Bien. Okay. You did pretty well. That long one, amarillo, you got stuck with the long, hard word.
Amarillo.
Amarillo. Perfecto. Muy bien. Muy bien, Shelley. Okay, we're good. I think I'm going to call people back because I don't think that one took too terribly long. And the next one, I don't think I'm even going to do a breakout room for because it's too easy. Actually, maybe the next two. We'll do a run. Aquí viene. We've got two more. Dos más, dos más. Bien. Okay. Nos faltan dos personas. We're still missing two more people. They might still be working it. ¿Dónde están? Not out yet. Okay. Oh, okay. They still have a couple of seconds. Zoom does a countdown clock. So unless you opt to get out, it does a countdown clock on you. So we'll have them back with us in a bit. Okay. Bueno. Now it does put you on mute when you come back. So take yourselves off of mute. ¿Hay alguna pregunta? Is there any question about that, Joe, that puzzles you or?
Marilyn, I have a question. I'm having a problem with I'll try it. Llorar.
Llorar. Llorar.
Okay.
It starts with the just llorar.
Okay. Llorar. Okay.
Llorar. Llorar. Anything that ends in an AR, we punch the last syllable a little bit harder. Llorar.
Okay.
Llorar. Llorar. And you'll get a feel for which syllable to put more punch into as we go along. There are some rules, but it's kind of good not to get too bogged down on the rules yet with that.
Okay.
Because as you hear it, you'll get better with it. The next two, I'm not going to send you out to separate rooms for, because these I think people get pretty easily. We're going to look at the ñ. Oops, I'll put it on my share screen. We're going to look at the ñ and the que. Ñ, again, is a separate letter from N. They do use an N by itself, just an N, but that little thing with the squiggle on the top of the N is, again, it's called a tilde. That little squiggle on the top is a tilde. And that is, again, was for many years considered, well, I think that one still might be considered a separate letter, the ñ, the ñ. And the reason why I won't send you off into separate groups for this is that most people get this right away. Okay. When you see the N with the tilde on the top, it is pronounced like the ñ of onion. And most people go, oh, like onion. Yeah, I got that. So, and this actually happened because in Latin, this ñ with the tilde on the top of it used to be two N's in Latin next to each other. And that tilde used to be the second N, and they would write it on top to save parchment paper in the medieval times, little monks before the printing press, copying stuff. Yeah, that was a thing. So ñ became a separate letter for the Spaniards. So it'll sound like this, and I'll model them first, and I'll have you repeat the word after me, okay? Repeat them. Cañón.
Cañón.
Cañón. And you'll notice there's an accent mark on the O in cañón. And when you see an accent mark, that means punch that syllable harder. Okay? Cañón.
Cañón.
Cañón, which sounds a lot like, canyon, right? Baño.
Baño.
Baño. Bathroom. Yay. And the word that means damage or harm or hurting, daño.
Daño.
Daño, that's a word like, if the road is damaged, if your roof is damaged, to do harm to somebody is daño. Oh, a word, and this means a little kid, like rugrat age, like till about maybe 5 or 6-ish years old. They'll call them this niño. Niño, boy, yeah. Okay, we're going to look at the second column. Mañana. Mañana means tomorrow. If we use it as la mañana, then it means morning. Mañana without the la is tomorrow. Hasta mañana, see you tomorrow. Yeah, it's a way of saying goodbye to people. Hasta mañana, see you tomorrow. Hasta mañana, until tomorrow, literally. But la mañana means morning time. Okay, the next is a word for size. And this is not like the small, medium, large, like clothing on the rack. This is size like, oh, the dog is about this size, you know, and you're like showing somebody how big the dog is. Tamaño, tamaño,
Tamaño.
tamaño. Okay, next we've got the word for pineapple, piña.
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 Piña. And next we've got this part of your body, uña.
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 Uña. I'm going to add one word to this because this is a bugaboo word and you're going to hear this a lot. This is the word year, año.
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 Año. It is really, really important when you tell people how old you are, like how you literally wind up saying, I have 30 years, I have 40 years. That's the way they express age. But it's important to always pronounce that word year as año. I'm going to show you why. There is a word without the nya sound, which is identical, except instead of a nya, it's just a n. You never want to pronounce año as this word, ano. Here is what ano means. Yikes. And the expression, if you want to tell somebody, I'm 35, you say, tengo, I have. Tengo 35 años. I have 35 years. But if you mispronounce that word años, it comes out as tengo 35 años. I have 35 anuses. And people will look at you like you're an anatomical horror show. Yes. So yeah, that word año is really important. No 15-year-old boy ever mispronounces the word año after that explanation. Okay, here we go. Now we've got que, qui, que, qui. Here is one of the very few, very limited situations where the u will not sound like u. The u will go silent. So with que and with qui, the u is going to be silent. Very, very infrequently is the letter U silent. But when you have a combination of Q-U-E, it'll sound like que. When you have the Q-U-I, it'll sound like key, like a key in your pocket. Yeah. Okay. So let's practice these. And these I won't send you off to, but I will send you off when we do the C and G. Pardon. Okay. So we're going to look at the first column here. The word for what? It's a question word, right? Is que.
Que.
Que. Yeah. The word below that is the word for who. Quien.
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 And when we've got more than one vowel, here the U is going to go silent because it's Q-U-E or Q-U-I, right? But all those other vowels will be pronounced. So the quien, we do the E and E, quien.
Quien.
Quien. Quien.
Quien.
Who? Here's the word for 15. You're actually going to get this next week or this coming week in your book. Quince.
Quince.
Quince. I want everybody to try quince.
Quince.
Quince. See. Here's the word that means I want, and they don't bother to say the word I at all in Spanish most of the time. They'll just say quiero.
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 Quiero. Okay. For example, quiero café. Quiero café. Quiero una pluma. I want a pen. Okay. Quiero. We're going to look at the second column. Now we've got another question word, except it's separated into two words. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué?
¿Por qué?
¿Por qué?
¿Por qué means why? ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué? Que by itself, what? But the word why is ¿por qué? ¿Por qué? Next, the word for cheese. Queso.
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 Queso. Yeah. And next, the word that is not 15, but fifth, like fifth in order, fifth in line. Okay, not 5, but 5th. Quinto.
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 Quinto. Quinto. And next, we've got the word paquete.
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 Paquete. Paquete, which package, it's kind of a cognate. It's like an English word packet, sort of, and it means packet. It means what you think it's going to mean. Okay, so we have sometimes when the que or the key will lead off the word. We have sometimes when the que or the key might be buried in the middle. It doesn't matter. Que and key, those are the combinations we'll have. Okay. So just so you know, the U goes silent there. Okay, we're going to take a look at C and G now. C and G, unlike all these other letters, the letter you saw is what you pronounce. What you see is what you say. And most letters in Spanish only have one way to pronounce that letter. But C and G have two ways you can pronounce the C, two ways you can pronounce the G. And how you pronounce the C, how you pronounce the G is solely dependent on the letter that comes after the C, the letter that comes after the G. That's what determines which sound it gets. C gets a hard and a soft sound. G gets a hard and a soft sound. Okay, and they get the hard or the soft sound in similar situations. That's why we look at these together. So, okay, if the letter after C is A or O or U or some kind of consonant like an R or an L, it'll have the hard K sound, like the C in cat in English, right? Okay. So these are all going to be k sounds. Wow, that's not too hard, but it does let us go back over all the vowels as well as the k sound. Okay, so let's look at all the hard C sounds. We've got canta,
Canta.
cuesta,
Cuesta.
and we're going to pronounce all those vowels. The U and the E will be ue, cuesta.
Cuesta.
Perfecto. Next, we've got corre.
Corre.
Yeah, and some of you are already really good at rolling your R's. If you're not, keep working at it. It'll come eventually. Corre. Next, we've got the word for raw. Crudo.
Crudo.
Crudo in slang can also mean to be hungover. Sometimes you're like, "Ay, estoy muy crudo." Yeah, I'm really hungover. Okay. Claro. Claro. Which means clear, or sometimes it's just used to say, well, of course, yes, you're assenting in some way. Crema.
Crema.
Next, we've got caldo.
Caldo.
And next, we've got copa.
Copa.
Copa is a drinking glass. Copa always indicates a glass that has alcohol of some kind in it. Yeah. So if somebody says, ¿Quieres tomar una copa? You want to have a glass with me? They are not talking about lemonade or water. They're inviting you to have a wine or a beer with them. Okay. Copa refers to some kind of an alcoholic beverage. And, you know, generally 3, 4, 5 o'clock or later on. Okay. So, so CA, CO, CU, CL or CR, it'll be k. Let's look at when C is not a k sound. Here's a soft sound for C, the S sound, like in English S, and it's only if it's CE or CI, then it'll sound like a S. Yay, that's not too bad. It'll sound like S. So here are the words we're going to practice with this. Cero. Cero, which is the word for zero. And I want you to notice there is no combination of ZE that is allowed in Spanish. I don't know why, but you can't do, Spanish does not let you do ZE next to each other. ¿Por qué? Why? No sé, I don't know. But cero, centro.
Centro.
Centro, which means center. It also means a downtown area. Okay, centro. Centavo.
Centavo.
Centavo, a cent. Yeah, okay, a unit of money, really tiny unit of money. The next is the word for an appointment or a date. Cita.
Cita.
Cita. And next is the shortening of the word bicicleta. Bicycle, like we shorten it to bike, they do that too. BC.
BC.
BC, okay? The next is the word for 100. Ciento,
Ciento.
ciento, right? Okay, our word century comes from that word ciento, ciento. They will come from a Latin source. And the word for sky or heaven is cielo.
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 Cielo, okay? So you've got k, k, k sounds, you've got s sounds. I am going to send you off to practice just the C's together, okay? Just that, those two sounds, the k or the s sound. And so we're going to take however long it takes to do that. And off you go, except for Shelley. And we'll let everybody leave. And Shelley, I don't think it'll let me put on share screen anymore. So hopefully you've got this printed off.
I do.
So, okay, I will start off with canta. You take the next one.
Fiesta.
Yeah, and try that out. Let's try this one again. And this one is hard. Almost everybody has trouble with this. I will tell you. Cuesta, right.
Cuesta.
Think of a
Cuesta.
quest. Yeah, we do have a word quest. Cuesta doesn't mean that, but yeah, but you'll pronounce it like that word quest. Cuesta, cuesta. Okay, next I've got corre. You take the next one.
Crudo.
Crudo, perfecto, perfect. Next word is claro.
Crema.
Crema, right. Next we've got caldo.
Copa.
Copa, perfecto, perfect. And now we're going to switch to the s sound of an S, okay? I will start with cero.
Centro.
Perfecto. Centavo.
Sieta.
Cita, muy bien. Bici.
Ciento.
Ciento, perfecto, perfect on that. And cielo. Okay,
Cielo.
muy bien. You did really, really well on those.
Some of them are familiar, more
Yeah,
so than a lot of
yes,
other ones.
some of them are, and you're going to see the next one. They won't all look familiar on the next one, which is why we do that one second. I like to do the easier one first, and then the harder one second.
Makes sense.
Yeah. You never start off with the hardest thing first. Why would you want to do that? Make people's life, it intimidates people. Our job is not to intimidate, it's to help everybody along. Okay, and we're just waiting a little bit. Not too hard, right? Yeah, see. You guys are doing really, really well overall. Just going to do our G's, and then we're going to stop for a little bit and switch gears to do something different after our G's. Okay. Okay, here comes everybody back now. Fantástico. ¿Hay alguna pregunta? Is there any question you have? And remember, it mutes you when you come back into the big group, so unmute yourselves.
I have a question not related to these pronunciations.
That's fine.
So chapter 2, we learned how to say a small familia. What's that word? I don't have my book with me. It's a P word and I cannot pronounce the life of me. Like P-E-N-G-U-A or something.
And
I think it's for small. Even
Yeah,
I had
the word
the
small, like a small family.
oh, pequeño.
Pequeño.
Pequeño. I'm going to put it in the chat box. Pequeño.
Pequeño.
This is, I'm putting it in the chat box. So if you turn on the chat box, you'll see it. Pequeño.
And that's
This-
always masculine?
No, not necessarily. It might be pequeña,
Okay.
and it means small in size. So it's kind of a long word. Yeah. Pequeño. That's got an ñ. So that's a good one to bring up now. Pequeño means small in size. Some people get pequeño confused with this word here. And now I've got a second word up in the chat box, poco. And poco means a little bit or a small amount. So if somebody says, Poco dinero, just a little bit of money.
Chico
Oh.
also means small, no?
Yeah, pequeño or poco tiempo, a little bit of time. So poco means a small amount, but pequeño means little as in, you know, how much space it takes up. That kind of small, that kind of little. Little or small, pequeño. Un niño pequeño, a little kid. A very small little kid, right? Un perro pequeño, a small dog, not a big guy, small. So pequeño is the opposite of grande. Pequeño, small in size. Okay? Sí, Shelley, sí.
Sí, sí.
Está bien,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Magnífico, magnífico. Okay, we're gonna, algo más. Anything else before we? No, okay. Let's look at our G's. Let's look at our G word. G also, in the same circumstances, will have a hard or a soft sound. So we're going to look at GA, GO, GUA, GUO, G with a consonant. It'll be hard G. And notice this is GUA, GUO. There's a reason. We're going to look at the other G's next week. But hard, like you think it should be g. That's how it's going to sound. G. Okay, so we're going to do our g easy sounds. This is the easy one. Agua.
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 Agua, water, right. Gafas.
Gafas.
Gafas are these. If you're in Latin America, they prefer not to say gafas. They prefer to say lentes usually, or anteojos. They're different words for glasses, but gafas in Spain. Goma.
Goma.
Goma is, yeah, like the rubber in your tires, okay? Legumbre. Legumbre, vegetable, right? Magnifico.
Magnifico.
Magnifico, and you got a GN with a consonant, right? Magnifico. Grande.
Grande.
Big. Here's the opposite for pequeño or pequeña. Grande. Alegre.
Alegre.
Alegre. And guarda.
Guarda.
Guarda means guarda, keep something or guard it. Okay, so same situation for a soft G sound. It will happen like you had soft S sound with CE or CI because it's GE or GI. And this letter, by the way, is called G. G. That's the name of the letter. And that's the way it's going to sound with the soft sound, that G, like the letter sound. It'll sound just like the jota sounded, the same exact sound like you had with the jota, the letter J. It'll be that throaty H. If you can't do the throaty part, just plain H is okay. People will understand you. But I will model these for you before you practice them one-on-one. So here is what we're going to do all together. Jorge.
Jorge.
Jorge. Two ha sound. Jorge. Jorge. George, the name George is Jorge. Okay. The next, and this one you have to work really, really hard because your brain wants to say general, and that's not it. General. It's got to be a general. Okay. The next is the word that means people. Gente. Bien. The next is page. Página. Página. Yeah, these sounds are challenging for the English brain. They really are. And it won't be gymnasium. It will be gimnasio. Gimnasio. And they don't shorten it to gym like we do. Okay, it's gimnasio. Gimnasio. And next one, it won't be energia, it'll be energia. Energia. And this one's really, really long, so break it down. Vegetarian becomes vegetariano. Vegetariano. Okay, I'm going to do these in order one more time before I send you off to do it in pairs, because this sound is something your brain fights against really, really hard. So these words again are Jorge,
Jorge,
general,
general,
General.
gente,
Gente.
gente,
página,
Página.
and you'll notice we punch the pa part, página, gimnasio,
Gimnasio.
gimnasio. And now we're going to have our at the end of the word, energía.
Energía.
Bien. And lastly, vegetariano.
Vegetariano.
Vegetariano. A lot of people go into a restaurant and they ask if they have a vegetarian menu. Well, restaurants expect to hear questions like that. Sí, tenemos platos vegetarianos. Yeah, we've got vegetarian dishes. So vegetariano. Okay, I want you to practice just the G sounds together. This one will probably take you a little longer and feel a little weirder when you get to the G sounds. So we'll go off and do these. And after that, we're going to work on our little items that we brought in. So, okay, one last off with your partner, hit the join button. Muy bien. Okay. Allí van. There they go. There they go. Great, Shelley. You and I are going to start. I'm going to start off with agua.
Cafés.
Gafas.
Gafas.
Gafas, that's better, way better. Gafas, sí, gafas. Goma.
Legumbre.
Legumbre, perfecto, muy bien. Magnífico,
Grande.
perfecto. Alegre.
Guarda.
Yeah, guarda. That was stuff that's got
Guarda.
guarda. Muy bien, guarda, guarda, guarda. And now we've got these je sounds, which are really kind of tough. Jorge.
General.
Perfecto, muy bien. Very, very well. You did on that. Gente.
That one was a Pagina.
Página, muy bien.
Página.
People struggle with this one. Yeah. And the he comes like in the middle, so we can't be thinking about it at the start. It comes in the middle. Página.
So it's more a he instead of a G.
Página, it's an H.
Página.
Página. Yeah, página. Página. Okay. Gimnasio. Wow, I've got the bad one. Gimnasio. Okay.
Gimnasio.
Now, gimnasio. I want you to try energía.
Energía.
Muy bien. Okay. And last, vegetariano.
Vegetariano.
Muy bien. Muy bien. Okay. Those are tough ones. Those G sounds are tough ones. And I expect people to struggle with that a little bit. We're going to give everybody the 1
I have
minute.
a question with the Duolingo. Is that correct?
Sí.
It seems like none of these words have gotten to, but if I continue to go, somewhere along the line we'll get to some of these. I thought that there might be more of a, you could just put in a saying and it would talk to you and you could talk back to it. So you could.
Oh, in Duolingo?
Yes, but you can't, can you?
No, it doesn't allow you for, let's say a free response. It'll ask you to repeat something.
And it corrects you, right?
And it corrects you. And sometimes it corrects you really well. And sometimes not so much. Yeah. The AI on that is getting better, but it's not perfect, just so you know. The voice recognition is not a perfect thing yet with it, but it's getting way better than it used to be. There's still sometimes when I say some things and then it's like, I didn't say it that way. It tells me I'm wrong when I'm actually right. It tells me I'm right when I'm actually wrong sometimes with both French and German. And I think that's just because it's tough with voice recognition because you have ambient sound around you. It's got all the competing things with, the sounds coming into your microphone, that kind of thing. So, okay. Muy bien. Preguntas, any questions? And it mutes you coming in, so take yourselves off of mute. Do you have any questions on those G sounds?
No.
Or no? No? Okay. I'm going to show you, just so you know what to work on for next time with pronunciation. Next time, we're going to look at the GUE, GUI, and this is going to be like the K key, where the U goes silent. We're going to practice that next time. When you see a GUE or a GUI, the U again will go silent, just so you know that that is going to happen. The U and the GUE, GUI combinations, it has a job. Its job is to just stand there and make that G go back to a hard g, g, g sound, because GE would normally be che. GI would normally be chi. So if we don't want to get the ch sound, we have to insert the U. We insert the U, and its job is to stand there and make the G go back to a g, g sound. But we don't pronounce the actual U in the GUE. We won't pronounce the U in the actual GUI, just so you know. So we're going to do that next week. And we're going to look at the B and the V. And I think I've got a good video on B and V. B and V will sound exactly the same, but they'll never sound like the v. There's no like teeth on the lip thing that we do in English. That's not going to happen. So B's and V's will sound like B. They will sound like B. So I'll have a little video for you to watch to practice that. And that'll be, oh, sí.
So is that why they say bienvenida sometimes and
Bienvenida, yeah, bienvenida. Yeah, you got a B and a V, both. Wow, yeah, you got the B grande, which I call big B, and B chica, which I call the little, and they sound exactly the same. Bienvenida, bienvenida, except our B's and V's you will find are very, what they, linguists call that an explosive B, meaning that you can feel air. If you say baker, boy, big, brave, and you put your hand in front of your mouth, you can feel air. And that means that it's an explosive B in English. It won't be an explosive B in Spanish. It'll be super, super soft. You should hardly feel any breath coming out of your hand. When you say big, brave boy, you shouldn't feel any air coming out. That'll be the difference. That will be the difference between the Spanish B and the English B. So you had some words like verde, you know, the word for green. It didn't sound like verde. Your lips come together. That's how that will go. Yep. Okay. We're going to work a little bit on your assignment of bringing things in. And I'm going to type it in the chat box. The question is, ¿qué hay en la nevera? Oops, it's coming into the chat box soon. I can't get my punctuation to work. And what, ¿qué hay en la nevera? ¿Qué hay? Now you can see it in the chat box. ¿Qué hay en la nevera means what's in the fridge. Literally, it means what is there available in the fridge. Yeah. ¿Qué hay en la nevera? Or you could have taken this as, and you already now you know that that word que means what. ¿Qué hay en la cocina? And that is going to be what's in the kitchen. ¿Qué hay en la cocina? I'm going to do one of each. One of each. Okay. And I'm going to start it off with en la nevera. You had a little en la nevera, in the fridge, in the refrigerator. En la nevera hay. In the fridge, there's, and I'm just going to say what is hanging out there on the shelves inside my fridge over there. En la nevera hay mermelada, hay mermelada. There's jam. Hay mermelada en la nevera. Hay mantequilla en la nevera. Hay, there is, hay mantequilla en la nevera. I could say, hay jugo. Hay jugo en la nevera. Yeah? Or if I want to talk about en la cocina, in my kitchen, because maybe it's in my kitchen, but not in my fridge. En la cocina hay queso. Hay, bien, no. Hay vinagre. Hay vinagre, vinegar. Hay vinagre en la cocina. I could say, hay aceitunas. Hay aceitunas, olives. Hay aceitunas en la cocina. Bien? Hay aceitunas. And we just say, hay, there is. But I can say, hay aceitunas, and there are more than one of them, right? So I can use I to say there are many of these things in here. Hay aceitunas. Or I could just say, like if I want to say there is oil, hay aceite. Aceite. So hay aceite, there is oil. Or hay aceitunas, there are olives. Bien? Okay. Do you have any examples prepared for me?
Okay.
And be brave. If you have a little problem with some vocab word, I know that's going to happen. It's okay.
I'll start. Or sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay.
So I'm from my office, so I have a limited fridge.
That's okay.
But in La Nirvana, a champagne.
Oh, champán. I see.
Queso,
Hay queso.
or I queso, and I agua mineral.
Hay agua mineral. Sí. Hay agua mineral. A lot of times when you order water, especially in Spain, they'll ask you con gas, and that means mineral. Con gas means with gas, bubbly. Con gas, sin gas, or without. So they're asking you if you want flat or sparkling. Agua con gas o sin gas, with the bubbles or without the bubbles. Muy bien. Okay, vale, magnífico. Mary, ¿tienes
Okay.
algo?
Okay. En la Navarra, hay pomelo.
Hay pomelo, grapefruit. Me gusta. Okay, bien. ¿Más o no? That's it?
That's
Today?
it.
Okay, está
Well,
bien, good.
I actually, I did have the mantequilla, but you had already done it. So
Oh, go ahead and say it too. Hay mantequilla.
hay mantequilla.
Hay mantequilla, perfecto. Okay, muy bien. All right, who wants to go next? ¿Quién? Anybody see?
I'll go.
Okay, Shelley.
But I'm having a hard time with the refrigerator. But
That's okay.
in la nevera,
Nevera. Try that up with me again. Nevera.
nevera,
Perfecto.
y
Hay.
hay el queso. And do you do el queso or just queso?
No, this is just hay queso.
Okay.
Hay queso. A lot of times we'll hear it as el queso. We're going to talk about that in a minute. This is where everything starts to merge. But
Okay.
with I, we will just say hay queso. Hay queso.
Sí.
Without the el. Okay.
Hay café. And then in la cocina or casino.
Cocina.
Cocina. Now I forget. Azúcar.
Azúcar, muy bien. Hay azúcar. Hay azúcar.
And then hay sal.
Hay sal. There's salt. Perfecto.
That's it.
Muy bien. Muy bien. Okay, vale. ¿Qué más? Who else? Who else has something?
Okay, I'll go next.
Ah,
En la nevera hay leche.
hay leche. Muy bien. There's milk.
En la nevera hay tomate.
Hay tomate. Bien. Hay un tomate. Muy bien.
Okay. En la cocina hay toallas de papel.
Oh, papel. Toallas de papel. You had a hard one there. Toallas de papel. Paper towels. Sí, sí, sí. Exacto.
Okay. Yeah.
Muy común. Muy bien.
Gracias.
Hiciste bien, hiciste bien, okay? And en la cocina, en la cocina. Yeah, the cocina part was a little bit hard, but that's okay. En la cocina hay. The important thing is you're using hay, there is, or hay, there are, okay? Bien? Anybody else? See? Pat, you have anything for us or no? See?
Ay, sí.
Perfecto. Dinos, tell us.
Hay en la nevera crema y leche.
Crema y leche, cream and milk. Muy bien.
Huevos.
Huevos.
Hay en la nevera.
Hay huevos, and huevos is a tough one. I'm going to put this in the chat box. Huevos is a great word. We don't pronounce the H. It's spelled with an H, but we don't say it. Huevos, eggs.
Y
Bien.
en la nevera una naranja.
Una naranja, an orange. Ah, sí, sí, excelente, excelente. Una naranja. Una naranja. Muy bien. Ok, vale. Sí, pregunta, question?
Yeah. For Tuesday, what do we say in Spanish?
For the word Tuesday? The word Tuesday is martes. I'm putting it up in the chat box here. Martes. Martes is Tuesday.
Because I remember something as jueves we came across. I don't remember that.
Oh, okay, okay. Entiendo. I know what you're going to say here, I think. Huevos is eggs, but two little small changes. I'm putting them in the chat box. Here they go. Here they come. Huevos is eggs. Jueves, and you have to hear the ch. Now you hear the ch. Jueves. Jueves is Thursday.
Okay.
So, that is really tricky because huevos looks like you have an H, but well, it's there, but we don't pronounce it. Huevos, eggs, but jueves. You do hear an H now, jueves, because the J always gets a ch sounds. Jueves is Thursday. Huevos is eggs. Bien.
Thank you.
Fantástico. Muy bien, muy bien. Okay, I'm going to put something on share screen for you here, and I don't expect you to copy this down at all. I would like you to just not take notes, but kind of be a sponge. Be a sponge and soak it up. You're going to notice in your book, and I'm saying this because I want you to see the difference between what these words mean. I is a verb in Spanish, and it only has that one form, I. It's never spelled a different way. It never adds on extra letters. It's always I. It's I, whether you're talking about one thing, it's still I, the same word, when you're talking about multiple, more than one thing. I means there is or there are. It merely says that something exists, that it's out there, someplace. It's really indefinite, okay? So I is just used to say that something is around, but it's very non-specific in terms of location, Okay. You will notice from your book, however, that sometimes they use this word es, which means is. I is there is, or there are, I. But es can only talk about like one thing. It can only be talking about things that are like one unit, like one person or one item. Es means is, and it is when we're identifying what something or someone is. Es is used to identify, or es might be used to describe something that is essential, something that is part of what that thing is, you know? If I want to point to this cup and I say, es café, it's coffee. The stuff inside of here is the thing we call coffee. Es café. I'm identifying what it is. Okay? I'm identifying what it is. I could say es fuerte because it's a strong drink. Okay, not some weak little thing. Okay. And then you'll notice in your book, sometimes they use this word está. Está also means is. You'll notice that the es and the está mean is. Both of those words mean is, but they don't mean there is. They're just is. Es is used to identify or describe. While es generally indicates some kind of permanent state, while es talks about some kind of a permanent state, you know, something that makes that thing what it is. Está also talks about only one thing, saying is, but está will be used to either describe a changeable condition. I don't know if I'm spelling changeable correctly there. My Spanish spelling is better than my English spelling. Es is a changeable condition, like el café está caliente. The coffee is hot. Hot with coffee is a changeable state. It might be hot, it might be cold, it might be lukewarm, but it's hot is a very changeable condition, right? So you'll sometimes hear está, and also está is used to talk about, and this is really important, location, where something is. Where something is. So there are these three verbs, and you're going to start, you've already started to read them and hear them in the book, but they mean different, they're used in different contexts. I for there is, there are, es for identity, and está for location or a changeable condition. And I could see some hands up.
Yeah. When I saw the word aquí está, like here is.
Aquí. Aquí means here.
Yeah. They use.
Está aquí. Something is here. Here is a location. It's kind of vague, but it's a location. So, está aquí, it's here. Está cerca, it's nearby. Está conmigo, he is with me. With me is still a location. Yeah, kind of, right? So anytime we talk about things taking up space, actual physical space someplace, whether it's a building, a human being, an animal, an object, we use está. But that video about I just tells you, well, that stuff just exists. We're not really being specific about where it's taking up space, just that it's out there. Okay.
Okay.
Es will get, the verb es will get various plural forms. The verb está will eventually get various different kinds of forms, but I never changes form. Okay. And those three things can be very, very confusing because in English, we just have is or are. And yeah, That's all you got. But Spanish uses different kinds of verbs. So when you're starting to see this in the book, like they use some things with family members. Mi padre está, aquí está mi padre. Here's my dad. I'm introducing you to, he's here with us. Aquí está mi padre. Here's my dad. He's taking up space. But if I just have a photograph of my dad and I'm pointing out, oh, this person is my dad, and I'm identifying, es mi padre, then I'll just say, es mi padre, because I'm not saying he's taking up space, just, oh, this human being is my dad. I'm identifying who he is in the picture. Okay, so you're going to start to see those different verbs of I or es or está. And they're used to indicate specific conditions or situations of is or are, okay?
And I have one more question, if you may.
That's fine. Dime.
It's not about this thing, but a different one. I saw somewhere using L-E, like L is he, is
L with an accent mark does mean he.
and
L without an accent mark means the.
oh, okay.
So they sound exactly the same. They're pronounced exactly the same. And I'm going to type them in here. L, when you see it written with an accent mark, means he. And it's a pronoun. So instead of saying Roberto, Robert, I might say él, he. You know, Roberto es mi amigo. Él es ingeniero. He is an engineer. You know, because I don't want to keep repeating Roberto, Roberto, Roberto. So I substitute él. Once I identify I'm talking about Roberto, I can substitute él to refer back to him, saying he. Él. But él sounds exactly the same, spelled the same, except it doesn't carry an accent mark when you write it out. Also means the word the.
Yeah.
Which one is it? El is combined. El to mean the is combined with a thing. And you'll know because you'll hear it paired up with a noun. Okay, like el queso, the cheese. Okay.
Okay. And la is for
And
the
la is the too. Okay, and we're getting right into that now. We're going to take a really, really easy look at this first. I'm going to give you actually a video to watch about this as part of your homework. But this is so easy that we're going to talk about this on its own. This is the topic of how do I make things, nouns, plural. And it's a lot like English. So we're going to take a look at that right now. And I'm going to give you the file for this. Don't feel you have to copy anything down because that'll be a waste of your time. Just watch it and kind of absorb, be a sponge. And I'll send you the file for this later, which you can print off and like do it yourself later if you want to do that. Nouns are the names for people or places or things. Okay. And the way we make them plural is a lot like how we make them plural in English. Yay. So it's not that much different. How you make a thing plural is by adding an S to the end of it or an ES to the end of it. Wow, it's a lot like English. But we have to look at the last letter of the noun. When the last letter of a noun is a vowel, A-E-I-O-U, we'll add on an S to make it plural. When the last letter of a noun is a consonant, N, L, you know, whatever, we add ES instead, okay? So this is kind of akin to what we do in English, like you'll say, olive, olives. Yeah, right. But if we say church, we say church as. Yeah, we've got an ES standing. It's a little bit different with why we use it in ES in English. But if the last letter of the noun is a consonant, it'll be ES. And then there's one little final kind of like a trailing off at the end rule. And it's a final rule because not that many words do this. Sometimes the last consonant of a noun might be the letter Z. And I told you way back at the beginning of class that ZE, they don't like ZE. Z and E can't be next to each other in Spanish. They just can't. I can't tell you why. They just can't. Ever. In any word, anytime. So if Z happens to be the last letter, well, you say Z is a consonant. Well, okay, yes, Z is a consonant. But if that last consonant is a Z, Z has to change to a C first, and then we add on the ES. So it'll still do the ES rule. It'll just be CES, not ZES. So we're going to take a look at some examples. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger here so we can see it a little bit easier. Okay, so, por ejemplo, if I want to say an Italian man, Italiano, I want to say Italian men, it becomes Italianos. And I just tag on an S because it ends in a vowel, Italianos. But Inglés has an S at the last letter. So we look at that rule and I have to tag on an ES to the end to make it plural. Inglés, an English person, becomes ingleses. Ingleses. Ingleses, okay? And then lápiz ends in a Z. I have to change the Z to a C first. It becomes lápices. But they don't, that Z and the CE don't sound any different. Lápiz sounds like an S. Lápices still sounds like an S, yeah. Lápices. So, por ejemplo, for example, escritor, and you know what, I'll leave the sign up here. We're only going to do about 10 or 12 of these. We'll either add an S or an ES, or it'll be a Z, changing it to CES. Okay, it'll be one of those three. So escritor ends in a consonant. Escritor means writer, somebody who writes for a living, escritor. To say writers becomes escritores. Escritores. And I'll send you this file. You can try it yourself later because it's going to go beyond 10. Alemán means a German person, a German guy. German men, like a group of German guys, would be alemanes. Alemanes. Mexicano ends in a vowel, so we just put the S on the end. Mexicanos. Mexican guys or Mexican men, right? The word luz means light, like a lamp light, luz. So if I want to say, hey, turn off the lights, more than one light, the Z goes to C, it becomes luces. Yeah? Luces, right? Piloto means pilot, right? Ends in an O, that's just a vowel. So it becomes pilotos, just an S at the end, pilots. Holandesa means a lady who is Dutch, a lady from Holland, Holandesa. To make it like, let's say, oh, we've got all these Dutch ladies in this tour group, it becomes holandesas. Holandesas, right? Juez means a judge. To say judges, it becomes jueces with CES. Z to C, add ES, jueces. We'll do tres más. We'll do three more. Bicicleta ends in a vowel, so we just tag on the S. Bicicletas. Estudiante ends in a vowel. We just add on the S. Estudiantes, right? Ooh, but dólar. Dólar is dollar, the money unit. Yeah, US money unit. Dollar. If I want to say dollars, I have to add not just S, but ES. Dólares. And it'll keep the accent mark where you see it there. Dólares. Dólares. Okay, dólares. So I'm going to send you this file. There'll be a bunch more, and we'll look at what the answers are. You can just kind of practice. Do I do an ES or an S? Most of them are going to be ES or S to make it plural. There'll be a couple of Z examples, not a whole lot, a couple. Okay, I will send you this file. See if you know. And oh, you know what? At the end of the file, they're going to start to do something else. They're going to combine both a noun and a description. And just so you know, both the noun and the description have to go plural. Both. So in 17, I'm going to preview for you. It won't just be, oh, you say, okay, if I just make hotel plural, it's hoteles, ES, but that word elegante has to go plural too. So it's going to be hoteles elegantes. Both words will go plural. And how you make them plural, we'll look back up at this rule. You follow what I'm saying? So in other words, in Spanish, they will say hotels elegance. Yeah. We say elegant hotels. They will say hotels elegance with an S at the end. Yes. Both words will go plural. So try that out. What you're going to do is you're going to watch this video before you do that so that it will be fresh in your mind. You're going to see some examples of this. So this little video will refresh what you just learned with lots of examples. And she's going to stick her husband in there and she's going to set him up to make mistakes. Oh my God, he struggles sometimes. The reaction you're going to feel for him is like we all feel. So watch that video and then do this, and I'll show you the key. You'll get the answer key when you come back into class next week. So that just talk, and she's going to talk about, she's going to start to merge also with this idea of plurals, the idea of the articles. And the idea was brought up of, oh, what is that little word el? And that little word el is, el means the. So we're going to start to get into this very, very uncomfortable idea of masculine and feminine. Okay. Here is the short answer. We have words that mean the, which are what we call definite articles, because the, if I say, get me the pen, you know I mean like this, get me the pen, right? But if I say, get me a pen, not the pen, but a pen, a pen means I don't care which one. If you got like a handful of them, I don't care which one you give me. Get me a pen. I'm not real particular, right? Definite articles means the word the. Indefinite articles means the word a, or sometimes it's an, like an apple, or sometimes it might mean some. Okay, so the short answer to this is there are going to be 4 words for the, depending on if the word is masculine or feminine, singular, meaning one of them, or plural, meaning more than one. Oh my God. And all this idea of gender, masculine or feminine, and plural is going to all start to kind of uncomfortably merge. There are going to be 4 ways to say the. If the word is masculine, it'll either be el, meaning one of them, or los, meaning more than one of them. Here are the other two words for the feminine words. La, meaning it's feminine, one of them. Las, meaning feminine, but more than one. Okay, and I'm going to send you this file, so you don't need to write anything down. The words for the, el, los, masculine, or la, las, feminine. They all mean the, but they're going to pair up with the word according to if the word is masculine and one, or masculine and more than one. Feminine and just one, or feminine more than one. Similarly, indefinite articles, a, or an, or some will be masculine, singular and plural, or feminine, singular and plural. So if I want to say a pen or a cup, okay, if it's a masculine thing, it'll be un to say a, or unos to say some, more than one, plural, because I can't say cups, a cup, some cups. That's what English does. But in Spanish, it'll be un, a, or unos, some. Okay, if the word is feminine, it'll be una, like una taza, a cup. But if I've got some cups, like a bunch of mugs sitting out, it'll be unas tazas. So just like the gets 4 words, a or some gets 4 words. Un or unos, una or unas, okay? You're going to hear her using these words when she does the singular and plural noun video. So these ideas are starting to merge together, okay? What I'm going to show you is, well, wait a minute. How do I know if a word is masculine or feminine? That is the question. Okay. So here's what I'm going to tell you. It takes some time to get used to that. We got a video for that too, and we're going to play this video. Oh, this is just perfect time. There are some general rules which work a lot of the time, but not 100% of the time, to tell if a noun is masculine or feminine. Okay, all nouns in Spanish are either masculine or feminine. That's real easy with people. Man or woman, boy or girl, old guy, old lady, teenage girl, teenage guy. It's pretty obvious. Animals, unless you turn them upside down and look at them, maybe not so obvious, but yeah, okay, you can tell. There are boy cats and girl cats, boy dogs and girl dogs. Yeah, okay. But wait a minute. In Spanish, things are masculine and feminine. This is the tough speed bump to get over. I know. They just are. Jam is a feminine word. Butter is a feminine word. Cheese is a masculine word. It just is. Okay. Oil is a masculine word. It just is. Vinegar is a masculine word. It just is. Okay. It is a hard thing for us to accept because we don't do this in English at all, ever. But they do it in Spanish a lot. And sometimes from the way the word is spelled, you can tell whether it's going to be masculine or feminine. So she's going to tell us some things that will help us with this. And I will send you the link to this video so you can listen to it again. These are not going to be 100% rules, mind you. They are most of the time rules. And she's going to help.
Bienvenidos a Hola Spanish. Soy Brenda, tu profesora de español. Today we're going to have a look at how to determine if things are masculino or femenino en español.
Because you got to know if you use el or la, los or las, un or una, unos or una. You got to pair them up right. So we'll
So
see
as you
when.
know, people and animals will have dual genders. But as you know, or as you may not know, in Espanol, in Spanish, things will also have set genders. So for example, the table will have a set gender, it's going to be femenino, and then for example, el libro, the book, will be masculino. So things in Espanol will have gender, and this is very important to know the gender of things because it will determine and change everything around it. So the adjective will have to match, the article that goes before will have to match.
And so here's what's going to happen. If a noun is masculine, the word for the has been masculine, and any description talking about like what color it is or what size it is has to also be in a masculine form. Everything that talks about this word gato, gato becomes the little sun in its universe, and every word around it that talks about that word gato has to be in the same form that gato is in. But if it's gata, little gal cat, little girl cat, it's going to have to go into a feminine form. Okay, yeah, it's
Everything will be
uncomfortable.
matching. So how do we know, how can we determine if something is masculino or femenino in Spanish? Well, we can follow a certain amount of rules, certain rules to determine if things are masculino or femenino in Espanol. Now, be warned. There are lots of exceptions to this rule. So as you go and progress on your Spanish language learning process, you will know and be able to identify those exceptions of the rule.
So there are exceptions to these rules. Keep in mind, these rules are like 75, 80% of the time kind of
But just as
rules.
generally speaking, there's certain rules that we can follow to see if things are masculino or femenino. Let's get started. Okay, let's start with masculino, how to determine if a word is masculino en español. So we're going to have a look at the ending of the word. If the word ends in o, it's very likely to be masculino. Por ejemplo, libro. Libro es masculino. See,
And this is why you almost always see nouns taught with the word the attached to the noun. So that right away, we're telling you, here comes a masculine noun, a masculine thing, el libro, el libro. So when you're taught the word book, libro, you're almost never taught the word book with libro by itself. It's usually called el libro, so that you start to get the pattern of, oh, this is a masculine word, el libro, okay?
you can see the O, so it's very likely to be masculine. So we're going to say el libro, see, the book. So if it ends in E, it's also very likely to be masculino as
Likely, but not 100% of the
Por
time.
ejemplo, pasaporte. Pasaporte. If it ends in R, it's also very likely to be masculino as well. Por ejemplo, amor. Amor. So we're going to say el amor. And the
Amor is love.
last one, if a word ends in el, is very likely to be masculino as well. Por ejemplo, sol.
Sol means sun, the sun in the sky, el sol.
We're going to say el sol, and there are many other examples as well. Let's now move to the femenino, how to determine if words are femenino en español. So if it ends in a, it's very likely to be femenino. Por ejemplo, casa. Here we're going to say la casa, the house. If the word ends in sion, with a C, we are going to also say that it's very likely to be femenino. Por example, canción, canción.
Casa means house. Canción means song, a song that you sing.
La canción. If it ends in sion but with an S, also very likely to be femenino. Por ejemplo, la televisión. And the last one, if if the word ends in dad, is also very likely to be femenino. Por ejemplo, la ciudad.
Ciudad means city. New York is a city, right? Los Angeles is a city. Houston is a city. La ciudad. DAD corresponds very, very closely to a suffix we use in English, ITY. So I'm going to give you one other example of this dad thing. La ciudad, city. La universidad, university, ITY. Okay. And also closely associated, TAD, libertad, la libertad, liberty. So DAD or TAD is
La
like ITY in
ciudad.
English.
So it sounds like there's a lot of endings, and you're probably wondering, do I have to really study this and remember all these endings? Of course you don't, but as you study Spanish and you progress in your learning process, you're going to realize that there are a lot of words in Spanish that have these endings. So as you get more used to the language, you will start to immediately know inside. You will probably even forget about this rule, and you will instantly know if a word is masculino or femenino based on your studies and some of these endings as well. So there you have it.
Okay, so now, and she is right, you don't have to absolutely memorize these, but as you see these patterns more and more, it will start to feel normal. And we're going to bring up examples of these next week. Okay, I'm going to send you this video you just saw so you can watch it again. She's also got a what are the exceptions to those rules video, which is pretty short. I'll send you that. And we'll bring this in next week and combine it with vocabulary that you already had in chapters 1 and 2 and some new words. So you're going to combine information you had in chapters 1 and 2, like about la familia, and other words that have examples like from what you saw in the video. And we'll see if you can identify and say, that word is masculine. That word is feminine. Okay, we'll practice it next week. I want you to start to read in your book, start to read chapter 3, capítulo 3. El capítulo, that chapter, el capítulo 3. I want you to start to read chapter 3 as well. Chapter 3, unlike La Familia that you had in chapter 2, is going to talk about numbers. And it's also going to talk about words that are like es, but they're different forms of es. So I only want you to really go through, I will say probably pages 39 through 43. That's it, because it's going to talk about numbers and forms that are like es. They're in the same family as es, but they're talking about different human beings. So in other words, how to not just to say he is, but how to say I am, you are, we are, they are. Okay. And it'll start to introduce those. And I will send everything in an email as the recap, so that you've got all the videos we had today and all the extra files where I say, practice some plurals. You'll get that. Everything will have a link to get into it. Okay, ¿está bien? Magnífico. If you come up with questions in the middle of the week, because you're starting to do something, and then you say, oh my gosh, I'm stuck, send me a quick email. Okay? And generally I will answer it within a couple of hours unless I'm totally away from my computer, not teaching a class that day. Okay? Bien?
Bien.
Magnífico. ¿Alguna pregunta? Some kind of question before we end up for today? Oh, sí. It went over 7 minutes. Perdón. Any questions before we go off for today? No? I will send everything in your email that you need. ¿Está bien? Perfecto, muy bien, fantástico. Ok.